All right, hi, Tom here from System.io. I want to share a interesting experience that I had this morning. I was at training with my training partner, Chip. He's a carpenter, and we've come through a pretty good session. He actually said to me at the end, we were joking around about business and about work in the trades, and for whatever reason, he came out with this line that was multitasking. Sure, I can do two things poorly too. I was like, oh man, that's so cool. That is such a cool saying. That's a cool experience. It's like, he was like, when people think that they're multitasking, they're really diverging their focus. They're actually working on two things, swapping between them, back, forwards, and he just came out and said it. It's far more likely that the outcome of that behavior will be two poorly done jobs, as opposed to focus on one, get it done, focus on the second, get it done. Now, the challenge comes when you're in a business and you might be working on some short-term projects and also some big long-term projects. It's like, well, if I just stayed focused on that big long-term project the whole time, then there's going to be some consequences of that. And I wanted to share something that I have come up with. It's not mine. It was just that there is no elephant big enough that it cannot be eaten one bite at a time. And the implications of this are that if you actually have your systems on point, then you can start to get pretty creative. I came up with a deadline webinar funnel that is an application based. So how does this work? So you opt in, you go to the webinar, and then in the webinar, the pitch is not directly to buy, but rather it's to apply. And then the applications are reviewed, and if you're approved, then you get sent through to the opportunity to buy again on a deadline. Now, this uses a couple of key things, the number one being deadline funnel. If you haven't got deadline funnel, then I'd highly recommend that you do. You head over to deadlinefunnel.com and grab that software. That's going to allow you to pull off authentic deadlines, like legitimate. I don't know how that magic happens with that software, but you can't really get around deadline funnel. But the overall complexity of a deadline application webinar funnel is pretty high. If you're just going to take that one on from scratch, like, it's a lot of work. But what I wanted to share with you is that if you happen to have a system for a webinar, and you had a system for creating deadlines or a deadline application and a deadline sale, and you had a system for creating email campaigns, then you can actually mix all three of those together. You're going to need one of the webinar system, you need two of the deadline systems, you're going to need three of the email systems. But you put all of those together and suddenly this rather daunting project, which is to create a deadline webinar funnel, becomes breakable down into 6 different systems. If you've got team, then you can assign different aspects to different people and they can see where the contingencies are. Oh, that has to be done before we can proceed with this, work on this, get that finished. And suddenly, instead of the series of half-built bridges that is so common when people get distracted, you actually have a completed system for marketing. Now, this is a pretty advanced system. This is not something that you take on if you're struggling with marketing. It'd be far better to have a simple system. But nonetheless, if you wanted to go to that level of complexity, then hey, this is how you can do it. And it fits in with that lesson of there is no elephant big enough that it cannot be eaten one bite at a time. All of those steps that are involved in all 6 of those systems can just be worked through one at a time, staying focused on that one task until it's completed. And then can move to the next one and complete that, move to the next one and complete that. And eventually, if you continually do that, eventually you'll hit the last one that's completed and the entire system of systems gets done. And you will have created the most miraculous of things, an asset for your business. And then, yes, sure, you'll still need some way of getting traffic to that webinar funnel. But nonetheless, if you've managed to pull that off, then hopefully you can see that the structure and the capability to actually create these assets is going to be exactly the same for creating your marketing for traffic. how to create your ads, how to create your Facebook Lives, how to do those things. It all becomes a lot easier when you've got systems on point. If you need help with this, if you're like, man, I need to grow, or you're already burning, man, you know that systems and processes are where you're weak, then head over to systemio.dev, pop in your name, pop in your email address, go and grab the training there. Look forward to seeing you on the next Facebook Live. Thanks for tuning in. See you then.